Hello everybody and welcome to the stream Retro Gaming Tuesday, where we play the classics from yesteryear, stuff I grew up playing and loving, and stuff that may or may not be familiar to you today. To date, a lot of these games that are retro are no longer around in any particularly accessible form, but this week we are playing one that most people who like their Nintendo games should be pretty familiar with. The original Game Boy Advanced Fire Emblem. This is actually the game that got me into Fire Emblem way back when. I picked it up when it was a new release and did not know that much about Fire Emblem beforehand, I must admit. This is the first time I really had any exposure to the series, because while it has been around since back on the NES, Nintendo only decided to start localizing them with this GBA one. So yeah, I discovered the series through this game, through my first Fire Emblem experience, and I haven't looked back since. I'm a big fan of Fire Emblem, really love it, and that really traces back to this one particular game, which introduced me to it all. And yeah, so we're going to play it this week. We're going to get a little bit through it, a couple of missions probably, because it is a Tactics RPG, so it's broken down into kind of little strategy levels, and we'll be playing from the start. I will give people a moment or two to jump on in and say hello if they're keen on watching, and we will get going. Now, I will say up front as well, this is the first time I've tried to stream a GBA game through this system that I've got set up, so I'm not 100% sure it's going to work as intended. I certainly hope it does, but if you have any difficulties with hearing me, hearing the game, watching the footage, do let me know and I'll try my best to fix it on the fly. Still experimenting with this whole streaming thing. It's a lot of fun, but technology being what it is, it doesn't always work to plan. So yeah, if you are on there, jump on and say hello if you're watching, just so I know that it's working. I'm not sure if anybody will be around. I must admit I have missed a couple of streams, so I totally understand if some of the regulars aren't here, because I've let them down by not being regular with my streams. There's been a lot going on, so I apologize for that. I am trying to get things back to a regular schedule of 4 streams per week. I might have to adjust slightly the times that I do those streams, but either way. If nobody is around to jump on and watch and say hello, that's totally fine. We'll just talk as I stream. I'll scream into the void, because there are people that watch these things back on replay afterwards, and that's totally fine, of course, as well. I do these streams as much to keep a record of various video games that I can refer back to down the track, and I find these streams are a pretty useful way of doing that. So we will give people another moment to jump on, and then we will start playing. So as you can see in the little introduction before you start to play, you can watch this little cutscene which explains the narrative context of the action, because while this is a tactics RPG and therefore not too totally focused on long cutscenes, it does have a lot of lore going on behind the scenes, and it has a lot of characters, and it's got a pretty epic plot, as you will see. Hello, Sean. How are ya? Dorcas for president. I mean, I'm pretty sure, I'm 99% sure you're going to guess immediately which character is my favourite from this particular Fire Emblem. So, you know who I've got my vote for. It's not Dorcas, although Dorcas is pretty cool. I do like Dorcas. Alright, let's get into it, shall we? So, let's start. We will do new game, so you can watch it all from scratch. I've only got a single level done anyway, so on this thing, so here we go. You are a tactician traveling across Elibi. Elibi. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. Set your name, birth month, and gender. Just a little bit of personalization at the start. It's not too important to the game, but I'm going to do it anyway. Matt. Not Hector. No. No. I mean, I like Hector too. Hector. No. No. I mean, I like Hector too. So here's the prologue. This is just a tutorial mission just to introduce you to the very basics of the game. As this was the first Fire Emblem that was released in English, I think a lot of people took their time getting into it. And one of the great things about this game, and also the most frustrating things about this game, there was no opportunity to grind experience levels. So if you leveled your characters up wrong, it was entirely possible to end up in a state that you were not able to actually finish the game because your characters weren't leveled up properly. You had the wrong characters leveled up, so you were too weak for the particular level, and it became actually impossible to finish a level. There was no backtracking to replay previous levels. So this was a pretty hardcore one to kick off the Western version or the Western experience of Fire Emblem. And it's just as well for Nintendo, I guess, that the story and the characters in this one were particularly strong. So people stuck with it anyway. I remember I had to replay it about 2 or 3 times before I actually got to the end. And that was, it really pulled you hard when you had to restart. It was really brutal. But it was also kind of, it felt good when you did finally actually get to the end and get to beat the end boss. So the more modern Fire Emblems are much more generous in terms of your ability to level characters up and make sure that you don't get stuck. But a little bit of the soul of the series was lost, I think, when they started to do that. Not that I want to get into the debate about whether games should have easy modes or whatever. I do think they probably should, but there was something about the achievement of actually managing to finish a Fire Emblem that I won't forget in a hurry. And there we have Lady Lynn. Whoops, I've introduced her name before she told you. It's a great character to start with Fire Emblem with. This lovely Lynn. Green hair and everything. It's always bandits first up. Always bandits are the introductory enemies, the lowest level of the lowest level, the easiest fellas to start with. Now this game has an interesting little, I guess, an interesting little story hook in that it does kind of insert you in a first-person sense into the narrative, because as you've just seen, Lynn is actually referring directly to you. She looks at the screen to talk at you, and you are part of the story. You're the little green icon there on the map, but you don't actually participate in battles. So you are following along the story as a part of Lynn's crew, but you aren't an active participant in the combat, which is interesting. I don't think any of the other Fire Emblems since have done that. I can't remember of any. Not many games at all actually try and do that. They don't try and put you into the game, but in a sense where you're also stepped back from the action, which is, it's neat. I actually quite like the hook, because what it allows you to do, or what it let the writers do, which you'll see if you play Fire Emblem well beyond this point, is it allows you to move between different characters as well and see different perspectives. That doesn't mean that particular characters have to be involved in every battle. So this is just a tutorial battle, of course. Nice and simple. You actually have to play the tutorial battles the way the game wants you to, so there's not much choice at this point in time. But as you can see, when you select a character, just like any Tactics RPG, you've got a choice of where you can move them, and the enemy will respond. I'm trying to think what other Fire Emblems might have done that. And I just can't think of them. I don't think any of the 3DS ones did. Certainly the two on the Wii, the GameCube and Wii didn't. The Switch one doesn't. Oh, hang on, you might be right. The DS remake of the original might have done that. Which was on the DS one may have. No, Sacred Stones did not. Absolutely did not, because it had two leading protagonists, and you could choose whether you wanted to follow the story of the guy or the girl. But there was no you on the battlefield as a strategist. Oh, hang on. What am I thinking of? I'm thinking of the second GBA one when I say that. You might be right. The Sacred Stones, the DS remake, may have been one. Anyway, it's not a common narrative technique, not in JRPGs, let alone Fire Emblem. So, yeah, I quite enjoyed that, the way it used you as a way of introducing different characters and stuff. And so, now we'll get to fight our first battle with Lynn. Now, quite generously, the game actually lets you choose which angle you want to attack the enemy from. Yeah, I mean, a lot of Fire Emblems also stopped inserting you as the player into the thing anyway. They just kind of followed along with the tactician being a character rather than you. So now strike. Now, as you can see on the screen there's a little bit of data to pop up. Lynn will attack twice to do 7 damage, that's the MT. Will attack twice to do 7 damage each time with a 100% hit chance. The enemy bandit will attack once with a 39% hit chance to do 10 damage. So different characters have different abilities, of course. Some are burly with lots of hit points. Other ones are quick and light that do a lot of critical damage. There are archers, there are magic users. There's a full range of fantasy characters that you eventually end up controlling in Fire Emblem. which is part of the thrill of it. You find your favourite characters and really take ownership of them, because you won't be able to use every character in every battle, so you'll need to be quite careful about the party that you end up forming to fight things, which is a big part of the strategic appeal of Fire Emblem, plus the characterization. Each character is a well-written and well-rounded character. Those pixel legs. Lyn was such a fan-servicey character. One of the other funny things about this game, or Fire Emblem in general, is it's quite fan-servicey, but classily so. It's quite classy about it. It's not too overt. It's not exactly a Idea Factory game, but it does have a fan service element to it, and that was not something that people were that aware of with Nintendo. That was not a sign of Nintendo that people were that familiar with before Fire Emblem came along. Everybody knew Nintendo was, Mario platformers and cute characters, and Zelda, which is, as far from fan service as games get for the most part. So yeah, to have Fire Emblem come along and have that side of things as well was pretty amusing. So now we've been shown how to use items to heal characters and get other certain abilities. It's all just very standard Tactics RPG stuff. Nothing about Fire Emblem will be of surprise to somebody that knows the genre. That was never the point. It was never innovative as a series. It was more classical and focused very heavily on the strong storytelling. Now we're going to fight the boss. You can tell it's the boss because they have a little shield icon next to in the bottom right of their character icon, and that shield indicates that the enemy is of a different caliber to the common enemies that you fight along the way. Those are always the tough battles. As you can see, rather than doing 7 damage per hit, now Lyn only does 5, and the enemy has a slightly higher percentage chance to hit. Now, of course, because this is a tutorial mission, there's no real risk here, but it's just showing you what to expect from future levels. Batter the Beast. What a name. So now Batter the Beast is going to take a swing back at me. Luckily he missed, which means I can attack. And then Lyn gets a critical in just to finish him off. And because he was a boss, the experience level is much... The experience gained is much bigger, and Lyn got a level as a result. Improving a number of her stats, which was not a bad level up. The stat increases were pretty good, actually. Those stat increases are actually random, so sometimes a favourite character will just not level up particularly well when you try and play through the game, and it becomes much tougher as a result. There are times, especially with this one, where you couldn't, grind experience levels, that I actually had to not use a favourite character on second or third playthroughs, because he or she wasn't leveling up in the right way. Okay, so the last thing that you have to do in any Fire Emblem level is capture the headquarters of the enemy, which I've done here. I seize, and that's the end of the level. I like I like how she says that fight must have taken a lot out of you when um, the the tactician, as in you, didn't do anything at all. Lynn did all the work, and she still shows that she cares about how you came through it. That's classic Lynn, that is. Oh, really? That's interesting. I mean, with regards to talk freaking high. No, with regards to Lynn winning, I guess there's also, for a lot of people, Lynn was the first Fire Emblem character that they actually got to experience. Like, she is the first character you meet in the first Fire Emblem game that was officially released in the West. So there is a bit of nostalgia, I think, there for Lynn as a character. And that is, of course, on top of the fact that she is a very fan-servicey character. She's big-busted and she wears a cheongsam, which means that her legs are nice and revealed. So, you know, even back on the GBA, as pixelated as they were, that was a thing. And I think that's just continued. You look at what they've done with Lynn in Fire Emblem Heroes, and they certainly play up to that, as well as the Fire Emblem Warriors game. They certainly play up to the fan service side of things. So I'm not surprised that Lynn's the favourite character. She's a bit of an older character, I guess, within the history of Fire Emblem, but I think that Fire Emblem fans as a whole were probably slightly older as well. So I think this is one of those series that more people have been in since day one than, for example, a Zelda or Mario, because those games are quite old now, those franchises. And that is about as long as a cutscene gets in Fire Emblem. So that one obviously introduced a pretty sad story on Lynn's part. Her parents were killed by bandits, which explains why she is not particularly partial to bandits. And she decides to go and join you because otherwise she's quite alone. The rest of her tribe has left her. And that's that. You are now traveling companions. That is how pretty much... That's about the length of all cutscenes in Fire Emblem, and somehow the game actually manages to build this really quality story around that with such a large ensemble cast as well. It's actually really well written as a property. I would not be surprised if there is a remake of this particular Fire Emblem. I think that this one is well loved. I think it ranks highly if you were to ask Fire Emblem veterans what their favourite one is. I think this one would rank highly amongst a lot of them, and I think that it is the kind of game that is quite... I mean, a remake of it would be quite welcome because people want to see all of this sprite stuff realised in 3D, so I think after the last Fire Emblem, Three Houses did a particularly good job anyway, it was very popular. They might look to capitalise on existing properties rather than try and come up with something new for the next one. I would not be surprised if the next Fire Emblem is a remake. I would certainly welcome this. Yeah, Roy's another one that it would make a lot of sense to do something with Roy since he's in Smash Brothers and is a very popular character there. His game's still actually not in English, so that would make a lot of sense as well. Okay, so we just save. You save after every mission because as it gets difficult, you actually often need to jump back and start again from the start. So that save thing window pops up every time. Now, as someone who likes maps, I really like the map design of this Fire Emblem game. Between missions, it shows where you move using a map. And yeah, it's very map porn stuff, this game's map. Okay, so here's the first proper mission in the sense that you will actually get control over your units and have to start to think about how to use them. Oh my heart, what a dazzling vision of loveliness. We're about to meet one of my favourite characters in this game because he's such a horrible perv and I sympathise. It's sane. Wait, oh beauteous one. So he's trying to be all very gallant. Very King Arthur and Knights of the Round Table stuff. But Lynn's not having a bar of it. Yes, he needs a taser right to the balls, he does. That's why I like Lynn so much. He's such a good, strong character as well. Fire Emblem in general has done a pretty good job, as fan servicey as it can be, in giving the women characters real strength and quality roles. They're certainly not damsels in distress that need rescuing. Saying you lout. So this time around we're facing 4 bandits, which is a bit more than Lynn can handle by herself, as she admits there. But as we're just about to discover, those 2 knights are going to join in. Okay, so finally we're back into battle, and now we have more than 1 unit to play with, so we've got some strategic options. But first we have to do as the game wants us to, which is use Sane first. We're about to find out why. So, he attacks with an Iron Lance. So as you would have seen, Lyn used a sword. Sane is using a lance at the moment. And that changes things. So as you can see there, the spear has a much lower hit chance than the sword did. And that's because Fire Emblem uses a kind of a rock, paper, scissors thing where axes beat lances and lances beat swords and swords beat axes. So that's a key part of the strategy of the game. There are other units that have different abilities that get introduced later on and some magic users and stuff. But that's the core of it, is that triangle system. So making sure that you're using the right units to take on the right enemy units is key to success in Fire Emblem, as we're about to find out. Same misses. And of course he's an absolute tool about it. The lance is more heroic, a knight should be heroic, don't you think? It's true, he is. You and Dorcas. Alright, so now Hussein has a sword to use in the future. Now you have to use Kent to... because as a knight, these units can have access to a couple of different weapons. The lance as well as a sword, which has a much better chance of hitting it, of course. And Kent gets it done. Or starts to anyway. And then Ling comes in and finishes them off. There we go. So that's now how the team works. We've got one more thing to learn from this battle. Once again, Sane's going to do something stupid. And miss another attack. So this introduces how terrain works into the game. So when an enemy is in the woods, they become harder to hit, of course. That's how strategy games work, and this one includes that. So you need to pay attention to the terrain as well. I actually picked up this game to have something to play on a train trip back from Melbourne to Sydney, which is about an 8-hour train trip. And I was using the train because at the time it was the cheapest way to get down to Melbourne for a film festival, and I was writing to film at the time. I was at university, and yeah, I wanted to go to this film festival that was down there, so I got on a train, went down there, and on the way back I really wanted something to do because the train trips in Australia are deathly boring. So I went into a game shop and saw this and picked it up, and that was that. From that point on, I have been a big fan of Fire Emblem. It was very hard to play the game on the train because back in those days the GBA I had didn't have the backlight, and I remember struggling to find a place where I could actually see what I was playing. Back in those days, handheld games were not as convenient as all that. You had to find the right lighting as well. But I did. I persevered. I kept playing this thing from that point on. Wore out plenty of batteries. Because back in those days, consoles didn't have rechargeable batteries either. Oh, the good old days of handheld gaming. Bless them all lights. Yes, that's the perfect conditions to play a game, a handheld game under, when you don't have a backlight. Yeah, that GBA SP was one hell of a device, wasn't it? Just the simple addition of the light and the clamshell form factor made it so much more portable, so much more convenient, and finally a handheld console that would, work under pretty much any conditions outside. Also, it was a rechargeable battery, wasn't it? Yeah, it was rechargeable, so that was awful convenient as well. That was the point that handheld gaming became genuinely viable as handheld gaming experiences. Yeah, exactly. It just was such a jump in terms of actually adding stuff. Hello, Dithzy Ram. I didn't even realise you were on. Sorry if I missed any of your comments beforehand. What's a nice game to play? I don't know. The Last of Us 2. I mean, if you can divorce yourself from everything about that game, it's fun to press buttons. To wrinkle that perfect brow of yours with worry for me. Oh, Saints hopeless. Lynn's response says it all, really. Well, now that The Last of Us 2 is out and will be nice and forgotten about soon enough, because all AAA games are, we can move on to the next one and we can start talking about Ghost of Tsushima. That's going to be a fun time. Is it echoing? Am I too echoey to hear clearly? Sorry about that. I thought I was using the same setup with the voice as other streams, but it seems like maybe I got something wrong there. Probably too late to fix now, but hopefully it's not too bad. Sorry about that. Yeah. I wonder what's causing that. That's really odd. Because I've only got one input. The internet. that is really true, actually. You need some kind of clear marker about what kind of discourse you're allowed to talk about with regards to that game. What's a good game like Knights of Azure or Blue Reflection? I would say let's recommend you play... Have you played Caligula Effect yet? Caligula Effect. Yeah, have you played that one? Because that's a great game, well worth playing, and it looks like they might be teasing a sequel right now, so it's a good time to get in on it. Okay, so now after all of that, I've finally finished what is effectively the tutorials for this mission, and I am now left to basically go about dealing with it how I want. So, while it would seem obvious to use Kent to defeat this enemy, I'm not going to do that because I don't want Kent to get the experience points. One of the things about Fire Emblem is because you can't go back and replay old missions, old levels, and there's no way to grind up experience levels, you need to really carefully consider how every experience point is distributed through a game. And I'm thinking well down the track, so 20 levels down the track, I'm going to stop using Kent because I think Sane's actually a more useful character to use as the knight, and I'm not going to have room in the party for both of them. So I don't want Kent to get experience points and unnecessarily level up, because I'm not going to be using him long term. So what I'm actually going to do is move him over here, and hopefully out of the way, so he doesn't get the experience points. Oh, he's going to kill the guy anyway. Bugger. Oh well, we'll see what happens. So, because he did that, now Kent just got 30 experience points that I would have rathered another character get, but that's how these things work. The Caligula effect has nothing to do with Caligula himself. It's he doesn't show up in the game, and he's vaguely relevant if you look at it as a thematic thing, but he's not actually a participant in the game in any way, shape, or form. Okay, so no, not quite. Yeah, he shows up as the end boss of the sequel. Spoiler. He's like Thanos. One click of his fingers and half the population dies. Oh, that's a funny thing. I think Caligula is actually more demonized now by history than he necessarily deserves to be. As far as I can tell from the histories I've read, he was certainly by no means the worst emperor that that Rome ever had. There were much worse than he was. He was just a bit of a perv. Admittedly, it was for his sister, which isn't very cool, but, you know, those days things were a bit different. Oh, okay, now I get you. Right, so the female protagonist was not part of the original PlayStation Vita release of Caligula Effect. She was added for the it's not really semi-remake that they released on PlayStation 4 and Nintendo Switch. Wasn't the really good Roman emperor? Wasn't it the one that I can't remember his name off the top of my head? Wasn't it the one that dies in Gladiator? Isn't he meant to be the good Roman emperor? And then his son-in-law takes over, and he was the one that did the 100 Days of Games or whatever, and he was a terrible person. But the father was good, like a good leader. Caligula is the weirdo. And has a rotating bed, right? No, Caligula Effect is most like Persona, really. But the character kind of is it's not really gender fluid as such. It's just different protagonists. Okay, so after all of that conversation about Roman emperors, which would make for a great tactics RPG. Actually, while I'm on the topic, there is a great tactics RPG, not about Roman emperors, but French ones, I guess. Banner of the Maid, if you haven't played that one yet, I highly recommend it, especially since you've got a pretty beefy PC now. Putting aside the dodgy translation from Chinese, playing through the Napoleonic Wars as Napoleon's sister and killing a lot of dudes is actually a really neat game. I'm a big fan of Banner of the Maid, so I recommend that. Banner of the Maid, that's what it's called. Unfortunately, the translation is really bad, and that's why I didn't give it a hugely positive review on when I did it on DDNet, because it's difficult to give a really dodgy translation a positive review for a fairly narrative-driven game, but the tactics stuff is really neat. The character art is really great, and I really enjoyed the game, despite the review that I ended up giving it. They need a Pokemon Roman Empire crossover game. Well, they kind of did that with the it wasn't Roman emperors, but Pokemon Nobunaga's Ambition. That was a great crossover. Remember that on the DS? That was good fun. Why they've never done another Pokemon Conquest or Nobunaga's Ambition Pokemon crossover, I don't know. I think that's a perfect combination. So we're about to beat this boss character now, and I'm sticking to my strategy of not using Kent. I've left him way back over here. Kent's not going to be doing anything anymore for me, unless I absolutely have to use him. But Sane is going to come in and save the day. The reason that I prefer to use Sane in this is, as much as he's an annoying character, he actually gets better level up stats than Kent does, so he becomes a more useful fighter later in the game. And yep, he'll finish him off. Yes, fantastic work, Matt. I didn't do much. I like how I always get complimented in Fire Emblem, even though I'm just in the background, just watching the dudes. Lynn's amazing. Lynn's the best. I love Lynn. You should see all the fan art for Lynn. There's a lot of it. Look at that lovely Game Boy Advance resolution key art. Could be worse. They could be called Karen. There's no Karens in this game, as far as I can remember. No, Karen is the everything that's wrong with Facebook type. So there we go, as we've just discovered, Lynn, who always thought that she was just a nomad, hanging out in the rural areas of the continent, the country, actually is the daughter of the Marquis. And now she's got a grandfather that she never knew she had, and these two knights are here to find her and bring her back so she can meet her grandfather and assume her role as nobility. Yeah, these two knights aren't the smartest sparks in the shed. I like how this ethnic group of nomads all have green hair. I think that must be the coolest group of nomads, the coolest ethnicity on the earth. They all have green hair. It's canon that Hatsune Miku is actually a nomad. Lord Lundgren. I wonder if he's related to Dolph. You'll see it soon enough. He actually looks like he could be related to Dolph in a way. when you see his portrait. Fire Emblem is great. I love Fire Emblem with a passion. This is my favourite Nintendo series by a long way. It's swords and sorcery and fantasy stuff. It's all pure escapism and it's great. It's light. Yeah, there is a very strong dating sim side of things as well. It would be funny actually if they actually just got rid of the tactics stuff entirely and just went with what they wanted to do. They clearly want to do, and they know that fans want, and just make a Fire Emblem dating sim. Which is my favorite? I've only played the first one, the NES. My favorite Fire Emblem would probably be, if not this one. I really like the one on the GameCube. I can't remember the subtitle off the top of my head. The GameCube one was really compelling stuff. I also, and I would love to play it again, but they won't do a virtual console for Nintendo Switch for some reason. I also really liked the remake of the second Fire Emblem that they released on the 3DS really late on in the 3DS's life. Can't remember the name of it either. I'm having a blank with all these names. But that one was really good fun too. That one had dungeon crawling and all kinds of good stuff on top of the Tactics RPG stuff. I really liked that one. Path of Radiance, that's the GameCube one. Yeah, that was really neat. And yes, Echoes, Shadows of Valentia. Thank you for that. So those would be my three favourite Fire Emblems. This one, Path of Radiance, and Echoes. Yeah, that's the one thing I would probably never play, a pathologic dating sim, no thanks. And no worries, thanks for joining the stream and watching on the Gaku, if I pronounced that right. I don't know where that's come from, but yeah, thanks for joining the stream and good to see you. So, what was I going to say? Where are we at? We've just discovered that Lynn has a grandfather, so she wants to meet the grandfather and become nobility. She also has an evil uncle that wants to kill her and has hired bandits to do so. So her life has just become very dramatic very suddenly. No, Lynn doesn't kiss anyone. All the kissing stuff comes later on. Yeah, Awakening is another really good one. That was the one that kind of saved Fire Emblem as far as I'm aware, because I know that Fire Emblem sales were dropping off a bit, and Nintendo was like, we'll give you one more chance to make this work, and they produced Awakening for the 3DS, and it sold like crazy, and as a result of that, Fire Emblem has become a huge thing for Nintendo again, which is good. That's it's good to see. I would be very sad if Fire Emblem went away. Anyway, so as I was saying, we're in a very standard fantasy kind of setup right now. Evil grandfather, good grandfather, evil uncle. Lots of people trying to kill the future heir of the throne, and she and a small group of allies are looking to turn things around. Just needs a poison apple, and it's pure grim. Yeah, I'm looking forward to Disco Elysium coming out on Switch at some stage. I believe it is. It was confirmed, I'm pretty sure. So that'll be fun. I'm looking forward to playing that. I don't play games on PC unless I have to. So, but I've heard great things about Disco Elysium, so I will play it at some stage. Chapter 2, Sword of Spirits. There is a sacred sword, a sacred sword enshrined in the altar east of here. So Getting some Excalibur action going on now as well. I guess that makes Lyn King Arthur. I'm sure there is a gender-swapped King Arthur anime, right? That's definitely happened at some stage. Oh yeah, duh. Fate. Fate is a gender-swapped King Arthur. Of course. I can't believe I actually forgot that. I love Fate with a passion. I can't believe I actually forgot that one. I feel very stupid now. Anyway, this Excalibur is actually called Manikati. Sacred Blade. And a bunch of bandits have decided to come steal it. So old man here is not happy. I am glass. The gods fear my name. I'm pretty sure nobody fears the name of somebody that you can throw a brick at and deal with. See, I told you it was very Excalibur-like. He can't draw the sword from its scabbard because he is not worthy. Okay, now we're ready to continue on, and this time around we have pretty complete control over the entire battle. We don't have to deal with too many little tutorial things where we're forced to do things. One thing that is introduced with this game, or this level, is the ability to go into houses. You can just wander into a house and you'll get a chance to chat to somebody. Crystar's good. I like Crystar. Crystar was part of Spike Chunsoft's amazing year last year. Wasn't just that one, they also had AI, the Somnian Files, which is an amazing little visual novel. They had Yuno, the remake, that was great. Steins Gate remake, which was almost like an anime as opposed to a visual novel, that was excellent. Conception was a great little roguelike RPG with good solid fan servers in it. Spike Chunsoft had an amazing year last year. Well, that's I guess why I think Steins Gate Elite was a good thing, was because it was an introduction to visual novels for a lot of people. I think it's that kind of stepping stone on the way into visual novels, because visual novels are a pretty hardcore thing actually, and you need something to intro you into them. There's been a couple that have been good at that over the past couple of years. Danganronpa's a good one. Phoenix Wright has been a good one for introducing people to visual novel style. I think Steins Gate is another kind of high level of production values thing that can get people into the genre. So I think those things are all quite useful for that. Well, I mean, in an ideal world, everybody would be starting by playing Seiya no Uta, you know. In an ideal world. So one final strategic thing that this game has added in is the ability to jump into one of those two things. Those are fortresses. They actually heal your units each turn if you keep them in there, which is a very useful little tactical benefit. And once again, I plan on not using Kent at any point in this battle, because I don't want him stealing the experience points, but they are going to attack Kent, of course, because he's lower level, so he's an easier target. The AI in Fire Emblem games has always been fairly simple, which means that it can be exploited, because these games can be very difficult, but you can exploit the AI to make things a bit easier for you. Luckily, it's the killing blow that matters the most, and Sane's just gone and done that to get himself plenty of experience points, making him useful. Let's just leave Kent there. In fact, let's just make sure that the enemy doesn't go attacking Kent. Get him out of the way. This time I'm going to use Sane to do the damage, so he won't get the kill experience points, because I also need to level Lyn up, and Sane's about to get an experience level anyway. And as you can see, his strength stat is already 10, which is particularly useful. I find, I mean, there's 8 statistics there to track, but strength is a key one, because that obviously impacts on how much damage you do. And if you play Fire Emblem right, the idea is to kill off enemy units before they can attack you back anyway. So strength is the key stat to track as far as possible. It's why certain characters like Dorcas, as Sean has mentioned a couple of times today, we'll see him soon enough. Dorcas is a powerhouse, because he has a very high stat for strength. Okay, let's finish him off with Lyn. So she'll get a new experience level 2. Not a very good one, unfortunately. Just an extra hit point and some speed. Now there is 2 ways to actually deal with this guy. If I want, I can break down this wall, and in doing so get access to here, because it's got a crack there. If you do enough damage to the walls, they break down. Or I can go the long way. Unfortunately, I can't go the long way with a knight, because knights can't go over mountains. So this level is really just introducing you to a couple of concepts within the game. But I do want to kill that enemy down there, because I want the experience points. So I'm going to send Lyn this way. Meanwhile, I'm going to use Sane to break down the wall. I enjoy the Neptunia games. I have all I don't think the I think the answer is pretty self-explanatory as to why the sisters appear in the second one with no introduction. We are talking about a fan servicey JRPG series. Does it need any more explanation than that? I don't think so. But I do love the Neptunia series. I've actually got a couple of the art books and stuff. The main reason I love Neptunia is because of Sunako's work. I'm a big fan of her art, and she's kind of core to the Neptunia experience. So, yeah. I did meet Sunako once when I interviewed her for my book, and it was a good interview. I really had a good time talking to her. I think she was not what I expected by any means. It was one of the most surprising interviews, just because I was expecting somebody very different to who Sunako turned out to be. No. The VR stuff is a self-insert, I guess, in that the characters talk directly to you as the person looking through the headset, but the game itself is not. I don't understand why you have such a problem with self-inserts. You have a real problem with them, and I'm not quite sure why, but yeah, you don't have to worry about that with the actual RPG stuff in VIIR. It's just the VR stuff. Is Noir? I can't remember Noir. That's the Tactics one, isn't it? You're a funny person. You are a very funny person, Divi. The only Neptunia game I haven't enjoyed is... And it's not I haven't enjoyed it at all, I just haven't been such a huge fan of it, was the one that they got the Western studio to develop. I don't know if Western studios, even though they are Canadian and Canadians are pretty good, I don't know if Western studios were the way to go with Neptunia. What was it called? It was a 2D platformer RPG thing. It wasn't great. In fact, that's an understatement. It was really not very good at all. It largely missed the point of Neptunia. It wasn't as funny as it needed to be. It wasn't fan servicey enough, which it needs to be with Neptunia. And it just kind of played like a fan game rather than an actual product that is meant to be part of the Neptunia series. Yeah, that's right. Zodiac was the other one they did. It's weird because I like the art style. I think they've got some talented people that work for them. But, yeah, giving them Neptunia was the wrong thing. As for, do I like the action ones? Yes, I do kind of like the action ones. They're Tamsoft, so they're good fun. I don't think they're particularly great games, but I think they're entertaining, especially in the context of them being on the Vita. They were easy to pick up and play on the go, play in short bursts, and I didn't have such high expectations for them, so I enjoyed them for what they were, really. Okay, so I'm about to fight this boss. Now, this is the first time I fought an enemy that doesn't have an axe. This guy has a sword, so as you'll remember, the weapon triangle, the Iron Lance, the lances are better against the swords. And as you can see, Sane pretty much ruins this guy. He does 13 damage and only potentially risks 3 in return, so... Well, Monster Hunter doesn't make sense because Monster Hunter is a pretty involved, in-depth game, and there's a reason they give you 50 minutes to try and take down the boss. That doesn't say short bursts of play to me. That says extended play sessions and ideally online so other people can play with you as well. I've never understood the appeal of Monster Hunter, to be honest. Other than as the art style, I do like that. But I've never seen those games as handheld things. And I haven't played Monster Hunter World on the consoles just yet. So who do you think you are? What a chance do you think you have against me? Pretty good chance, to be honest. I don't think you're a particularly powerful dude, Glass. Doesn't even hit back, and then Lyn can come in and finish him off, I think. She'll take 8 damage, but she does 2 attacks at... Oh, so this is where you actually need to start thinking about things, because there is a chance that Lyn would miss one of those attacks. The percentage chance to hit is only 79, and if she does miss, then on the enemy's turn, the enemy can kill Lyn, which would be a level over and I'd have to restart. So it's just not worth it, actually. I'll just leave Lyn there, end the turn. Sane will get the kill, but that's alright. He'll get the experience level there. And another strength point. See? Same was the right one to put the money on. And now I'll capture the throne and finish this level. The sword is glowing. And another key art. We're getting a pretty good rate of key arts with this game. It's not... You don't get that many actually through the thing. It's not a visual novel by any means, but those key arts are rather lovely. I do love Lyn. Lyn is such a great character. You don't get that many actually through the thing. It's not a visual novel by any means, but those key arts are rather lovely. I do love Lyn. Lyn is such a great character. I say key art. That's what I'm calling them, and that's that. That's what I call them when I get them commissioned for my own visual novels, and that's what I call them. So I'm sorry if that offends you, but key art is what I say. Got the Manikati. So we've got a very powerful weapon now. That is a very powerful sword indeed. And Lyn is just proving herself to be a very important person in this world and story. I mean, I guess we already knew that just from the fact that she was the lead character, but her destiny is now starting to be written. I've got a new mission. I'm going to find a self-insert game that you actually like, Dithie Ram. That's my new goal, and I'm not going to rest until I find one. Kent's such a loser calling her Lindis. She's Lyn, dude. Just chill. Stop being such an uptight knight. I have to find some now. I don't really think about self-insert as a thing, so I'm going to have to think about some and then get you to play them. That's a very that's a very Shinto thing. Some swords feel more comfortable in the person's hand, so some people feel more comfortable to the sword. The idea that swords and inanimate things have a spirit. It infuses so many games that come out of Japan because of that Shinto thing. That's basically where the idea comes from. Or that argument, that philosophy. Well played. Well played, yes. Lynn should totally diss everybody that calls her that. Very good. This is the Manikati. This is my sword. She's going to let it get rusty the first time it rains, I bet you. And now we're about to meet the elsewhere in the world. That is Dolph Lundgren's relative in-game. Oh no, it's got to be Manikati, right? It's got to be. See, I told you he could look like Dolph. Kinda. You look at him from a certain angle, and he's absolutely the Dolph. Old man Dolph. Although I guess Dolph is actually an old man as it is now. Anyway. Okay, so I think that will wrap things because, as you can see, each level takes about half an hour. So we're pretty much done for this stream today. I'll probably play a little bit more. Thanks for joining in, Sean. It was great to have you on, and thanks to everybody else for being on as well. Of course, we will be back on Friday night with a different game. I'm not sure what at this stage, but it is DDNet After Dark, so it'll be something a little bit more adult. But otherwise, have a great week, everybody. I hope this was fun. Certainly fun doing it, and yeah, we'll see you next time.